Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of De Huda, De Strange and De Jugsy, the podcast all about Parisian hockey predictions. And of course, we are coming towards the vital stages of the Olympic tournament out at the Yves de Manoir Hockey Stadium in Paris. The quarterfinals are done and dusted. We're going to have a review of those today and a look ahead in the predictions for the semi-finals with myself, Dan Strange, Sarah Juggins as ever alongside me, and Jugsy. There's bad news on Ava, and finally, she's going to get docked some points. What's happened?
I mean, we can forgive her flying to Paris for the Olympics. We can forgive her for her coaching in Stellenbosch, missing the pod, but she's asleep. She's literally sleeping.
I think
So,
the quarterfinals wore her out, didn't they?
well, they were all of us out. They were so exciting. But now, Ava, I mean, Kelly Hudson can say what she likes here. Ava has to be docked points this time.
So the decision's been made, 2 points gone.
Mm.
Makes a big difference at the top of the leaderboard when you come to the scores. In fact, it's a great time to introduce him because unless points are docked this evening, this man and his team will be in joint first with Ava de Huda. That's all I'll tell you at this stage. It's former German goalkeeper Tobi Walter, a fabulous goalkeeper, a fabulous co-commentator. I had the pleasure of co-commentating with him out in Antwerp in May, and not just a fabulous co-commentator, Jugsy, but also brings along cinnamon swirls, cinnamon buns, and coffee every day. So right up at the top of my co-commentator tree. Tobi, how are you?
Thank you very much. I'm very good, Dan, and I'm super happy to join this podcast.
Have you been enjoying the Olympics so far?
Very much. I guess I've watched pretty much every hockey game. Two screens at home, watching Olympics every day. So it's super exciting.
Of course, this is the podcast where everyone on it has slightly a story of woe with the Olympics. Yours is slightly different to some who we've had on because, of course, you were a reserve for Rio. You then got dropped from the German squad ahead of the Tokyo Games. Just give people at home sort of the background of that if they're not aware of the background of your career.
Yeah, you were right. So for the Rio Olympics, I was reserve keeper. After that, played a couple of tournaments, and the half a year before the Tokyo Olympics, when they were actually to be held in 2020 before COVID, I got dropped out of the team. Until today, still, I don't know why. Never got an explanation. So, but I'm done with it. I'm enjoying club hockey and enjoying life.
Can I ask you a quick question, Tobi? And I know you'll give me an honest answer here. We've heard from a lot of the players who have been sort of, dropped quite recently from the Paris squad, how they've worked really hard to make sure that their teammates have the best preparation. Is there just a tiny, tiny bit of you that's really, really hoping that the other goalkeepers get injured so that you go? Or are you actually that magnanimous that you really wish them the best all the way?
Of course, I was furious, but at the moment when I got the news, it was very weird. Like, of course, I was very disappointed and like kind of in shock, but on the other hand, also a lot of weight fell off my shoulders at the same time. After that, I took a 2-week holiday just by myself. And yeah, when then COVID came, you have other things to do, other things to care about. And then when the Olympics came, you were a bit like, that could have been my spot.
Yeah.
And you're like, you don't wish anyone an injury, but you're like, you look a bit more critical on saves or goals against. So, but that also fades away with time.
With time.
I love Tobi's outlook. And of course, a day I'll never forget in your career, Tobi, was Mark Appel Day, where you were the goalkeeper in goal when Mark went and scored that historic goal in Bhubaneswar. We were talking about it on our WhatsApp group on the De Huda, De Strange and De Jugsy WhatsApp group the other day. Brilliant times. And of course, for you, a little piece of history. Right, Jugsy, time to blow the whistle for the warm-up when we go through all the goings on from the men's and women's quarterfinals. Of course, Tobi, it is the useless silent whistle, as we've become used to. The sound effect will be put in. So, both of you, you can pick apart the 4 games in the men's quarterfinals. There is quite a lot to pick apart on these. And actually, from the 4 teams, from our 4 teams, some really low scores. Jugsy, coming to you first. What was the main standout game from your point of view?
You know what? All of them had we're talking about the men's games here. I mean, every
Yeah.
single one of them was just so entertaining, and so unexpected until the last minute. The only one I didn't get to see the Belgium-Spain game, so I didn't see what happened there. Although I did lose one of my podium teams in that match, which I was very disappointed about. But I guess India GB stood out for me because, again, I'm going to be accused of non-national bias here, but I found myself rooting for the Indians. You know, they lost a player so early on. Their discipline in that match, throughout that match, the way they played that game, the strategy they used, I thought they were superb, and I think they've given themselves a really good block to build on from, because to have come through what they came through, I thought was astounding.
And Toby, for you, did you see the Belgium-Spain game? Obviously, you live in Belgium.
I did see all the games. But yeah, obviously India GB was incredible game to watch. And obviously the massive surprise, I think, is the win of Spain against the reigning Olympic champion, who are now out of the tournament. But to be honest, Spain was a better team. Spain had very good chances, good ball possession, and they were tactically just very well prepared.
The story of that Spanish team, we'll come to the India GB game in a minute because I think it deserves sort of a bit more dissection to a degree. But the way that Max Caldas has built this team over the last few years, we've spoken at length on commentary, and I've spoken to you guys both in the background about how interesting kind of a character Max was going in there. With the Netherlands, almost success was expected, and in Tokyo it didn't come, it didn't work, it fell away from him. Then going into Spain, it was almost this shot to nothing. You know, he was almost picking up this team of young, fresh, vibrant, fun attacking players. And almost he's been able to, if I say paint them in his true picture, does that make sense? But it really is a phenomenal story. That said, everyone wrote them off before the competition. Even in our commentaries before we would say the top six could win. The top six could win. And then you looked at it and India dropped to seventh. And I remember saying the top seven could win. But no one said the top eight could win. They could still win this.
Yes, I agree they could. But to be honest, as you said, who would have thought that Spain will be starting? They started the tournament quite poor. They got back in, they got their points. They made it into the quarterfinal, which wasn't that tough at the end of the day for them. But who would have thought that they can play such good hockey? Like, you haven't seen it in the Pro League in the last year. You haven't seen it at any Euros or at the World Cup. You haven't seen them since Max is there. You said like, oh yeah, they sometimes they play quite well for a few minutes, but they haven't put a statement out there. That was the first statement in the game against Belgium since Max took over, and that was quite impressive. And I think no one was counting on that.
I think you saw some of it at the Olympic qualifiers. I do think at times there they played some really good hockey. Sarah, just moving on to the Great Britain India game, we saw a rarity in hockey. We saw a red card.
Yeah.
What was your view of the game over? I mean, it was a stunning defensive performance from India, but a lot more to it than that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was just astounded at the GB approach, to be honest with you, because, I mean, particularly that 2-minute spell where India were down to 9 players, because there was the green card as well. I thought I was going to see an all-out. I mean, this is what GB are known for. They're known for their energy, their fitness, their continual hammering away, and we didn't see it. It almost seemed as if they were terrified of throwing away a golden opportunity, so much so that they stifled themselves. That's how I felt. And I mean, I heard on the commentary Simon Mason was getting more and more frustrated with what was going on the pitch, and you could feel for the guy. You know, you almost felt like he wanted to burst out of the window of the commentary box and jump on the pitch and shake somebody and say, "Come on, just take this game by the scruff of the horns," because it just wasn't happening. And India, they were brilliant. You know, they just took the heat out of the GB attack, and they were fabulous.
What amazed me with India was, or not amazed me actually, that's the wrong word. What I thought they did really, really well was how composed they were, even when the red card was shown. they didn't. Yes, they surrounded the umpire to say, well, why, what, how, because they felt it should have been a 10-minute yellow. But they actually didn't lose their composure really as a unit. There was a great picture of that moment. And Manpreet is looking away, almost dejectedly, yes, but calmly. And I think that those years of experience within their ranks absolutely crucial. Toby, one thing that Simon was saying, which obviously should be true if Simon says, but it wasn't on this occasion because it didn't happen, was that Ollie Payne should be taken off by Great Britain to create the 11 outfield players and the 2-player overload. What was your view on that as a goalkeeper? Was that sort of Simon getting too exuberant in his tactical ideas, or would you agree with him that maybe Great Britain should have tried it?
I think towards the end of the game, they should have tried it because obviously the momentum of the whole game was in India's hand. They overcome 40 plus minutes without a player, and they didn't have many chances. The Srijaj played an outstanding game, kept his defense together. But then towards the end of the game, maybe the last 2 minutes, just take your keeper off and give it a shot. Like if you're 2 players more than the Indian team, they will not run the counter. They maybe have one guy who's trying to run a counter, you shut him down. But yeah, then to have the touch as the coach said, okay, let's take the keeper off, let's take a risk. But it's a quarterfinal, it's time to take risks. But do you let India go into a penalty shootout with that massive momentum?
Toby, when you were in goal and shootouts were being taken, you would have had notes, you'd have had detail, you would have done all your research, all your homework on every single player you faced. Did you ever dream, did you ever think of, or be audacious enough to say, hang on, coach, could I put it on the iPad and take it with me?
My God, I saw that. I saw that on TV and I couldn't believe it. Like, yeah, people put something on their bottle or on the back of their glove, but why would you take an iPad with you? Like, you know that. You are prepared for it, so you shouldn't be watching video while the shootout is going on.
Seriously, Sarah, what was your response on that? Were you just as flummoxed as I was? I couldn't believe just the brashness of it. Josh Burt's face, also, who's the technical director on it, just looked absolutely astounded by the audacity.
I'd have been worried that someone had nicked it while I wasn't looking.
Well,
it's a bit of tech, isn't it? All joking aside, I mean, you're carrying something that's probably got a whole heap of data that you don't really want to share with anybody else. And I'm not saying for a second anybody would have taken it, but I would have been worried. And I certainly wouldn't have taken an iPad on there.
imagine if a water cannon came on sporadically
Exactly.
and wiped it out. Was it a big shock how badly Australia, well, not how badly Australia played, but the result, 2-0 down. The comment I heard, I actually didn't see that game, was that they played a relatively flat game by their standards. We're going to move on in a second to the women's quarterfinals. But did you feel, Toby, that they just never got going, Australia? Relatively simple way through for the Dutch?
I feel they did not get going for a minute in this game. The Dutch guys cruised through that semifinal. If you have to reflect on the whole game, the Netherlands really cruised through that game, scored 2 goals. No chance for Australia.
I know we're going to move on to the Germany-Argentina game, and I know you're going to talk to Toby about it. But Dan, I don't know whether you had your crystal ball, because you actually even predicted the goal scorers for the Germany team, didn't you, in the podcast the other day?
I said Velen would score in the last few moments, I believe. Oh no, Payet. I said Payet would score.
Payet would score, yes. And as it happened, I was like, Dan Strange, you have got a white witch background there.
Can I just throw one other thing? And I know we have to move on. We say this in the pod all the time, but I'm going to put this up on screen. I'm not sure if I can I'll put it in the edit. I'm not sure if I can put the time I put this up. Just to jump back to Great Britain versus India, I put a tweet out. From memory, it was about quarter time between 3 and 4. So the last quarter time. And it said something along the lines, and I paraphrase here, this has got a draw written all over it, and India winning it on the shootout. And I genuinely, and that people did comment on this, genuinely, I put that out at quarter time. So, Payet scoring to win it for Germany. or to help them through. India going to a shootout. I'm Trijesh doing the business. I won't get extra points for these things because I got them wrong. But you know,
I don't know what you think here, Toby, but I probably would give Dan an extra point for getting these things right, but then I'd take it straight away for his gloating.
Fair, definitely fair.
yeah, try not to laugh there. Right, back to zero. So what it meant to our points overall, we will briefly talk about Germany Argentina because we haven't touched on that much. That was a fabulous game, and I must say, I thought the end of it, in terms of how the umpires dealt with a very difficult end section of the game, Zeke Newman, most of that was down his end. Obviously, I'm talking right at the end here. I thought they did fabulously just to keep a calm, controlledness to the game.
Yeah, I think overall they handled it quite okay. If you see how some players are approaching the umpires throughout the whole game, like straight hand towards the umpire, touching the umpire, really getting close up, and therefore it's actually quite nice to have these umpire cameras. So the spectator or the people at home, they also get a feeling of how close are these players actually coming to the umpire. And I can understand for umpires that can be intimidating. But what happened with our rule of crowding? Green card. If one player more approaches the umpire. We haven't seen that so far. And we have had a couple of games where several players at the same time approach umpires and not a lot of things happen.
It's great to hear Toby backing up the umpires there. Toby, from a German point of view, quick question. I don't know if you've got the intel on it. Tom Grambusch, is he out the tournament? Will he be okay? I know he had a really nasty knock on his hand.
I haven't got any update on that, but I guess he will be ready to play the semifinal. I know him a bit. He's a very tough guy.
He's a very tough guy.
Hand or not, he'll be there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Moving on. What it meant on that day was 3 teams got 4 points and 1 team got 3 points. Jugsy, the bad news is you were the 3. So we'll go through the rest of it and we'll keep you updated. Now on to the women's. So that was from today, the 5th of August. We're recording this the night of the 5th of August, day 10. Of course, 4 amazing matches. Again, we were treated to another astounding day. Probably, well, Belgium, Spain was the only one that wasn't particularly close. Netherlands, Great Britain was probably closer than we all thought. Toby, starting with you, and we'll start with Germany, your home nation. How did you see that game with Valentin Altenberg's team crashing out the competition?
To be honest, it was quite a boring game. Not a lot of things happened. Germany had to rely too much on just 2 players to get things going. Argentina was dominating the start, didn't really give Germany a lot of chances. And then you have a very late goal and a very late equalizer, which then go to a shootout. And then Argentinian goalkeeper was just amazing. She was already on the bench crying because it was her fault for the penalty stroke for Germany. She was crying all in tears and then go out again to save all the shootouts. That's pretty well done.
I'm embarrassed to say that I was quite down on Augusta Albertario, to the point where I put on the WhatsApp group that she was, ruining every Argentinian attack. And of course, the irony is it was her who started the attack that led to the PC, which led to the equaliser, which led to the Argentina win. So, yeah, once again, I've proven I know nothing about this game.
Can I just also flag something up in favour of Ellie Raya on our last podcast? She spoke about a statistic of the team scoring to take it into a shootout often went on to win the shootout. And I went, oh, Ellie, where have you got that from type thing? And she said, no, it's definitely out there. And what did we see? We saw a team going in, tails up, goalkeeper, as Toby said, coming back off the bench after all sorts had gone on. And they take the victory. They go in to the semi-finals. Of course, they were there in Tokyo as well, finished second. Right, Australia-China, Jugsy, started the day. I'm going to come to you first on this one because I know you know Alison Annan very, very well indeed. A really exciting game right to the very end.
Oh yeah, it was so tense. I mean, considering you know, I'm not Australian or Chinese, I was rooting for those two teams to do something. I mean, it was just. I thought the fine, well, yeah, a whole heap of things really. I thought that when I was watching it, I thought Australia were going to take the bull by the horns. I thought they were going to win. And I saw China sort of suck that out of them. I then saw the last few minutes Australia coming back and back and back, and I was absolutely convinced that there was going to be a turnaround in the result. But I think that what we saw was the sort of the gradual inculcation, if you like, of the approach of Alison Annan to winning. You know, China believed that they could win that, and that was what came across. It was I thought it was a really good game. I thought it was a great showcase for just playing with belief and playing within yourself as well. That's what I thought China did, and you know, I mean, it's going to be an amazing story if China come away with a medal after the sort of, you know, their decline over the past few years. That really is a story and a half. And I think, you know, Alison at the Netherlands had a very different challenge. It was keeping a winning team winning. This has proven that she can actually take a team that isn't expected to win and make them get results.
And of course, if China do get a medal, 3 of us get 10 lovely, juicy points.
I
On
know.
the leaderboard. Toby, did you hear what Alison said in the huddle at the end of the game? She said something along the lines of, you can celebrate this, but we haven't come here to finish 4th. We've come here to finish top. The mentality, the winner's mentality, is always going to be a winner's mentality when you've got her, Rick Charlesworth, Taiki Taikema, and AD Locke in there. But to sort of openly say that in front of the world is huge.
Yeah, but as you said, it shows why they're going there. Who is going to Olympics to just be there? Yeah, to be a part of Olympics, everybody says like that's the biggest thing. But once you make it through the group stage, and I also think that's why China dominated the game against Australia. China played a tough group already. They played Belgium, Netherlands, Germany. They go still with 6 points, where they get the last 3 points against Japan in the last group game. So a weak opponent. They beat them 7-1, I think. They go into a quarterfinal, and they are obviously prepared much better to play a strong opponent, which Australia was after their group stage. They go through with 4 wins, 1 draw. They played a very good group stage, but against weaker teams. So China really, I also, before Olympics, I said, I see China winning a medal because they're the dark horse of this tournament. And I was listening to another podcast of Simon Orchard a couple of weeks ago, and he was in an interview with Rick Charlesworth, and he also said, like, you tell them what they have to do, and they do it. They execute. They execute without asking, and I think that's a big plus for China, that their mentality is like that.
Right on cue. Who's that? Just over my right shoulder.
Rick
Charlesworth. But I'll put that there just to get the great man in. So Belgium won relatively comfortably against Spain. Netherlands against Great Britain. To be fair, bar an absolute shocker of a start from Great Britain, where they just literally let the Netherlands score off to something like 46 seconds, and nothing Min Pritchard could do about the goal at all. She was literally left completely exposed by a defence. I actually thought in fits and starts, Great Britain played quite well in that game. There'll be surely, Toby, certain question marks from the Dutch fans back in the Netherlands as to whether this team are going to go and romp to victory like the rest of the world says they will.
I think it's a tournament, and you have to be the strongest in your last game. And I think they have played well. Also, they have shown today that there were minutes long where GB didn't touch the ball. I think in the first 10 minutes, GB was not once with the ball over the midline. They had 3 free outs. That's it. The Netherlands was in ball possession, and I think that's where they get their strength out of. And they were dominant. Then GB scored the equalizer. They got back into this game, but I honestly didn't see ever a doubt in Netherlands winning this game today.
I just expected them to put their foot on the accelerator when they needed to, and that's how it felt. But I do have to say, that does mean that they go into the next match not perhaps as sharp as had they played an opposition that had pushed them a little bit more. I wasn't quite as generous to the GB side as you, Dan. I didn't think they played very well. Well, No, I didn't think they played very well.
They acquitted themselves better in the last 2 games than I thought they would against Argentina and the Netherlands.
Yeah, I must admit, I mean, all of us predicted bigger wins for the Dutch than that. So in that respect, they've done well. Oh God, that's damning with faint praise.
4-1, 5-2, Toby, 6-1 and 3-0 were the predictions for that one. What it does to our leaderboard in terms of the points from today is Ava. Now, this is an interesting point, which I will just note. 3 of 4 of us called the China game the right way. Exactly. 2-3. Only I got it the right way in terms of who won, but took it to a shootout. So all 3 of you picked up 3 points. I picked up 1 there. So it means overall, Ava took 9 points from today. 9 points. Jugsy, blow your whistle. It's the end of the elongated warm-up as ever. We have the longest warm-ups in history. It's longer than the pre-season, our warm-ups. Jugsy, blow your whistle. And of course, it's time then for the predictions to start. So we are going to go through 2 days of predictions. We're going to chat around the games. There's a lot to talk through. First of all, tomorrow, day 11, was it 1 p.m, I think, UK time? Sorry, that is. So 2 p.m. local time. 6th of August, 2 massive matches. Of course, you've got Netherlands versus Spain, then a long gap, and then it's Germany, India. So, Toby, I'm coming to you first for the Dream Team. And I'm going to ask you what your score prediction will be.
Exact score?
Exact score.
Netherlands beat Spain 3-1.
3-2.
No, 3-1.
Oh, 3-1. Oh, 3-2. 3-2-1.
3-2-1.
3-2-1.
3-2-1.
I thought you were
3-1.
saying 3-2 and then changing it to 1. 3-1. Right, okay. Netherlands beat Spain 3-1. Who scores the winner who scores the 3rd goal for the Netherlands, Toby? You don't get bonus points, I'm just interested.
Thierry Brinkman.
Brinkman, wow, he hasn't scored many. He scored at all.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's his time.
Now, Jugsy, we don't have Ava's scores currently. I will obviously put them in the edit. We don't have
let's
Ava's
make them
scores.
up for her. Let's make them up for her.
Just make them up. And
Ava thinks Spain are going to win 9-0.
I heard it was 11-0.
It possibly could be.
Yeah, okay. We'll put them in at the end. But Jugsy, what's your score prediction?
Mine is 4-2 to the Netherlands.
4-2 to the Netherlands. I don't know if this is silly. I'm going to go Netherlands 3, Spain 3, and the shootout goes the way of the Netherlands. I was going to go Spain. I'm going the Netherlands, but 3-3, and the Dutch take it on the shootout. And that's based on, I think Permin Blaak is the better of the 2 goalkeepers. Toby, you on the goalkeepers? He's non-committal on the goalkeepers. He obviously knows.
I think so. I think so as well. I was also not really convinced of Calzado for Spain before the tournament even started, and he did start very poorly, but then he really stepped up this game and played amazing. But I think after that bang off a game against Belgium, Spain is not there. Not ready to beat the Netherlands in another big one.
Toby's lost his train of thought because he's never come across Pepper Predicts before. Now, this isn't just Sarah losing interest in the podcast and going and picking up her dog. This is Pepper Predicts. Pepper, I believe, is about to decide the fate of Jugs' score for Germany versus India. Is this correct?
Yeah, Pepper got substituted yesterday, Toby, because she had got it wrong, but she actually played a blinder with predicting China. So I brought her back in, and she's got to choose between Germany and India, and I'm not sure that we're going to agree. So she's heading Germany's way. Oh, or is she?
Pepper's gone for India.
She's gone for India. Yep, she's definitely gone for India. So we're going to compromise because I thought Germany would win. So we're going to go a 2-2 draw, but Pepper says India are going to win the shootout.
Right, Toby, Germany, your home country, your former team, a lot of your teammates playing in this game against India. Who wins
2-1.
this? 2-1.
Germany, yeah.
2-1 to Germany. It's a
very
huge
convincing.
game. It's a massive match that is so difficult to call. I'm going to match Jugsy. I'm going 2-2 and India win the shootout.
You hear that, Peps?
It's so difficult though, because I actually think. Actually, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm scrapping it. I'm going 3-2 India in regulation time. Because I think if it goes to a shootout, Danneberg is the Manneberg, and he would win it for Germany. So I think I'm going to go, based on the fact if it goes to a shootout, Danneberg would help Germany win it. I'm going to go India win it 3-2. Harmanpreet scoring a late penalty corner.
Well done.
And suddenly throwing himself into Indian folklore, Tendulkar and co, that sort of level, to take them to a final for the first time since the 80s.
You get docked
I don't
points
see
for
that
flights of
happening.
fantasy there.
But imagine if it happens again. Ava will add hers in. So we're through tomorrow's scores for the men's semi-finals. We'll wait and see how that affects it. And then on to the women's semi-finals, the day after, the 7th of August. Netherlands, Argentina, a replay of Tokyo's final, Tokyo's gold medal game. Tobi Walter, what's the score going to be? Bear in mind, you're playing in the Netherlands next season, so be careful here.
It's women's.
It is women's. You still have to talk to them, Tobi.
I'd say also 2-1 Netherlands.
2-1 Netherlands for the dream team. Sarah Juggins.
Yeah, 3-1 Netherlands.
3-1 the Netherlands. I'm going 3-0 the Netherlands. I said it on the first podcast. I think the Netherlands are in Argentina's head. This is a team that went and didn't just beat Argentina in Argentina. They absolutely obliterated them, scoring some worldies of goals. The one that Yubi Janssen scored diving in a rare field goal from Yubi Janssen at the end of that game. Ava was included in the build-up. I think they'll have far too much from them. I wouldn't be surprised if Ava concurs with us. So all three of us are going for another final for the Dutch, and potential another gold medal for the Dutch as well. Right, Belgium, China. I imagine there might be a bit more contention on this one. So Jugsy, I'm coming to you first. Belgium, China, what's the score going to be?
Oh,
This is head and heart. This is head and heart stuff for you, isn't it? Because your heart's probably saying China, and imagine your head might be saying Belgium.
I had a conversation. I said to you off air, I had a conversation with Jill Boone quite a few years ago. And I said to her, we were in Belgium and quite clearly a lot of money was going into Belgian hockey generally. And I said to her, what's the plan? What's happening? And she said, for the women, we're 8 years behind the men, which if you follow that through, Belgium should win a medal this time, and then they should win gold in 2028, which would suggest a Belgium win tomorrow. And I do like Belgium a lot. I think they've come on leaps and bounds. But I also think that China are, well, they were my wildcard podium. I'm going to go 3-3. And then I don't know, because I think Aislinn de Hoog is a very, very good goalkeeper. I'm going to go 3-3, and I'm going to go Belgium win the shootout.
Of course, the downside of that whole story is 2032 is not looking good for Belgian women, though.
It's really not.
No, they're 8 years behind. The 2032 crop don't want to be there. Right, Tobi.
No, sorry, I'm going to change. China are going to win the shootout. China are going to win the shootout.
Is that permitted? Do we not have to take first answer? No, I changed earlier, didn't I? It's fine. Okay, Tobi, on to you.
1-1 and Belgium wins shootouts.
Oh, do Belgium win the shootout? Do they?
1-1 and Belgium win the shootout. I'm going 2-2 and China win the shootout.
Because they do what they're told.
Because their goalkeeper's exceptional, and so is Aislinn de Hoog, but their goalkeeper's very, very good and knows what she's doing in a shootout and has had plenty of practice. Because the scores are in. We all now know, barring Ava de Hoog's scores, that we all think that the Belgium-China game is going to go to a shootout and anyone could win it. That is our hashtag Prison Hockey predictions for the semi-finals. Jugsy, blow your silent whistle, please. It's the facial expressions. I've had to extend the whistle most of the time just to fit in with the facial expressions. Right, so it brings us, of course, to extra time. We will just tell you briefly that for the finals, the plan is to have one each day, to have one before the men's finals and then one before the women's finals as well, in terms of the Dahuda, Destrange and the Jugsy podcast. Toby, from your point of view, as you said, you've watched a lot of the Olympic Games. What has been your standout moment? And also the question I want to ask you, two questions, in fact, because it's about two different countries. What's been the standout moment of the Games for Belgium, because that's where you live? And what's been the standout moment of the Games for Germany?
Good question. That's a very good question. I don't know. Germany has won a few gold medals already. Swimming, for example, I followed a bit of swimming. Belgium, the Belgian basketball team is doing quite well, the women. I think they made it into the quarterfinals. But to be honest, I have two good moments of Olympics where I was very impressed. Is last night I watched the 100-meter final, Noah Lyles, and everybody watched the Netflix documentary about the runners. That's pretty impressive. And I also watched Simone Biles. It's another documentary which I watched before starting Olympics. It's very impressive. You really get into the sports. So those two events were really interesting for me. It was a highlight. And to be very honest, the India GB game of the men.
Yeah.
It was a massive highlight. It was such an interesting game. I was like tense, sitting at home, like barely could take my eye off the screen. That was really nice.
And Jugsy, for you in the last few days?
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching a number of different sports. I tell you what I watched, and this is Germany did very, very well at it. I watched the dancing horses. I think they were yesterday. So it's the dressage, but to their own choreography. And I mean, you know, I would never go and watch that normally, but it's on the screen and you start to watch it and you are mesmerized. I mean, those horses that are doing I don't know what you would call it, where they lift a hoof, they hover, they then lift the other, and they do this sort of
Piaf, Jugsy, a piaf.
Piaf, that's it. Piaffing ponies. I thought the piaffing ponies were fabulous. You already know that I love my cycling, so watching actually the earlier tonight the women's team sprint. I thought, yes, I'm having a bit of national bias here. I thought the GB women were brilliant. Absolutely, they got a world record. I think they broke 3 world records on their way through to the final. That was really good. And like you, Toby, I think Simone Biles' story, you know, just her performance, but her story as well has just been tremendous. So I'm loving it. I'm loving looking at all these sports, not just hockey.
For me, the last few days was the guy. This sounds horrible, and it's not meant to be horrible. It was actually just such an amazing 100-meter final that the guy that was leading after about 20 or 30 meters finished last, but finished last by like there was 1.5 meters in it or something silly. It was so close. I thought that was just, it showed the raw quality of that race and how exceptional those athletes were. And the other highlight for me, and this is kind of a running highlight, is actually my kids, 8-year-old kids, and they're really getting into the sports. Both of my children requested to watch very random sports in the last 24 hours. One turned around and went, "Daddy, I want to watch the shooting." And the other one went, "Daddy, I want to watch the diving." And I'm like, brilliant. You're getting into it. You clearly love it. Isn't this fantastic? And we're all off to the Paralympics in a few weeks. So they get to watch more of it there, which is even better. I love that the Olympics is doing what it should and inspiring people into it. Right, on that note, Jugsy, blow your whistle for the last time. Because that brings us to the end of episode 6 of Dahuda, Destrange and Jugsy. Of course, if you want to follow us on social media, it is Dahuda Strange Jugsy Pod on Instagram. You can use hashtag Parisian Hockey Predictions if you're playing along at home. We will be back, as I say, we'll get out in the morning of the men's final. So a couple of days from now, we'll have the next podcast where I'm hoping we may have a repeat visit very quickly from the one and only Tobi Walter with another special guest from the Dream Team that hasn't been negotiated in Tobi's contract, though, as yet. So we'll have to have that conversation off air. And then on the day of the women's final, 2 very, very special guests. for that podcast as well. Jugsy, as ever, thank you so much for taking the time to host the podcast with me. We'll have to make sure that we get Ava back on screen very, very soon. To Tobi Walter, thank you so much for coming on. And to you at home, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.